For those who know me, remittances has been a passion of mine for the past 20 years or so. And I continue to look for ways to innovate, to disrupt, and to offer consumers more choice and control in that space. Today, I'm fortunate to have a panel of doers, not just subject matter experts, who are currently active in this business and are innovating in many ways in the remittance space across borders and beyond money. It's a huge market, over $600 billion projected by 2017 in cross-border remittances, not just by the 220 million migrants, by increasingly by the expatriate communities that live and work abroad throughout the world. It is a resilient business. It has survived and continued to grow throughout the economic crisis, and we have seen many new emerging players in that space. So today we are going to tackle some of the burning questions that have long surrounded this industry by having a good representation of the remittances and the payments segment. I'm going to introduce the panel, and I'm going to ask each one of them to actually give us a bit of a background about themselves and their business, because you'll see the differences amongst them. So with that, let me start by Ludwig.
Thank you, AJ. My name is Ludwig Schultz. I'm the CEO of Mistral Mobile. My background is consulting, venture capital, and then in Nokia for many years in the financial services group there. In 2012, our team exited the Nokia family, if you will, and took our knowledge of financial services and the combination with mobility to create Mistral Mobile. So when we sit down with financial services customers, whether banks, operators who are increasingly active in the space, insurance companies, etc., effectively what we do is solve for all of the elements of mobility in financial services, removing the burden, the uncertainties, the complexities that are involved in mobilizing financial services, whether in the developed market context or especially also in the growth market context. We are firm believers in the opportunity that the growth markets represent, and therefore spend quite a lot of our time in those markets.
Okay. Thank you, Ludwig. Jay Geeson from Seagate.
Yes, good morning. My name is Jay Geeson. I'm president of Seagate Global Services International, which is a privately held traditional money transfer company. I've been in the business for a number of years in the payment services industry, starting back in the original MoneyGram days, then with Western Union, and then moved on with GE into the credit and alternative financial products arena. Today, we operate Seagate in 140 countries around the world, and we are looking not only at the traditional money transfer, but the new evolving ways that consumers want to send funds.
Thank you. Ian.
So Ian Sayers, so I look after digital and mobile for Barclays. I think we've been mentioned quite a few times this morning in various different guises. I would like to point out, by the way, that we do actually know, for the guy who said that we didn't know that he supports West Ham, actually we do.
We won't hold that against you.
Oh, no. The interesting question is what we then do with it. But one of the things and why I'm here today is one of the things we do is obviously Ping It, launched in the UK. We now do remittance to 4 of our countries that we operate in Africa, and we're expanding that further. So we're looking at how do we bring that very simple user experience of just knowing somebody's mobile phone number to this world of bank-to-bank transfers and where that can take us.
Excellent, thank you. Jeremy.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jeremy. I am a CFO at AfriMarket. We are a startup, very new startup, which is involved in the remittances space to Africa. What we do is we are trying to move away from the traditional cash-to-cash remittances market to a new cash-to-goods and cash-to-services service, whereby our clients, African migrants, can send dedicated money to their families back home, but in the form of services and of goods.
Okay, thank you. Theodore?
Right. My name is Theodore Tete. I'm the CEO and Managing Director for Unistream UK Limited. Unistream UK is part of Unistream Money Transfers, which is a worldwide money transfer payout network. It's one of the biggest payout networks in the former Soviet states and the Eastern European corridors. So I guess I'm representing the worldwide network, even though I'm the CEO of Unistream UK.
I think what you gather from our panel is just the diversity in the business itself. Maybe some of the complexity, but also opportunity to collaborate, to integrate, and to interoperate. And that leads me to my first question to Ludwig. Please explain interoperability to us.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a term that has been used in a lot of different ways in this industry. In some cases, you'll have people describing it in the open loop kind of context with traditional payment cards like Visa and MasterCard, and that, for some people, is interoperability. Certain regulations in especially the growth markets have dictated interoperability, but in sort of vague terms where a local switch may be applied, but the economics actually aren't necessarily figured in a way that the parties involved have an interest. So I think it's unfortunately one of those terms that's probably been so abused that it's lost much of its usefulness in discussion, I would have to say, AJ.
Okay, thank you. And Jay, you know, we talk about, it's interesting how you introduced Seagate, traditional money transfer. We talk about the agent model, and in some cases debate the disappearance of the traditional agent model and try to measure the impact that new technology and the emerging players have had. What are your thoughts on the relevance of the agent model as it stands today?
Good question, because you know today we're seeing a lot of technology, a lot of innovation in the industry, but there's certain things that the consumer goes back to, and I think this is really consumer to consumer focused. And what are the needs of that consumer? Certain market segments enjoy having cash, being able to manage their cash, not using a bank. Others on the payout side prefer to get the cash. So the traditional model, I think, will always be there. You know, is this the only model available to consumers? I think the answer is no. We've seen a lot of technology advances. We're seeing more and more account deposit as a big movement from cash payouts to account deposits. So we are starting to see some trends. It's important for us because, you know, we're not the market leader. There's a lot of opportunity just in the core model for us. So, you know, we're enjoying our growth right now from a lot of the traditional agent network acquisition strategies, but we know as a company we have to stay involved with the emerging technologies and really be ready to take advantage of that when the opportunity is right. And today, you know, we're testing a number of emerging technologies as a way to complement the overall program that we have. But right now we see it more as a complement than a full transition away from the cash to cash right now.
Okay. And Ian, I have to admit that Pinion is probably one of, if not the most successful P2P payment, mobile payment initiative launched not just in the UK, but really across Europe to date.
No, it's mainly UK today.
So why is that? Why do you think you've had such a strong launch and a good, successful track record up to this point?
I think it's basically because, and a lot of people have touched on it this morning, it's a combination of things. It's convenience, because actually all I need to know to send you information, to send you money is your mobile phone number. We do it instantly, which is what people expect in that digital world now. They're not expecting 3-day clearing or stuff being rejected 6 or 7 days later for some arcane reason. And we're doing it for free, which again is what people are expecting. Now, what we're interested in is can we bring that to the remittance world? Because actually, why shouldn't we be able to? There's no reason why we can't.
Okay, thank you. And just picking up on that, Jay, because it's interesting we talk about the cost of remittances, both to consumers and the infrastructure that is operationally expensive to an extent. You've seen in the market recently a lot of pricing actions by the likes of Western Union in particular. In fact, on the buses outside, I saw an ad for £2.90. How do you compete with that?
Yeah, you bring up a good point because technology is bringing down the overall margins of the business, and that's important to understand. And as a company, we have to find some points of difference between the different options that a customer has. And we believe customer service is one of the first and foremost things that we want to stand for with our customers. So by providing that extra customer service and support, we believe that helps create some brand differentiation between us and other competitors.
Okay. And Theodore, tell us a bit about how customers today send money through Unistream.
Percentage-wise, I'd say we do have about 70% cash-to-cash transactions and about 30% telephone and online transfers. Just like my colleague from Seagate said, the traditional system will always be there. Unistream tends to offer remittance services to migrants, mainly from Eastern Europe, in the UK. They tend to find the traditional face-to-face sort of interaction more convenient rather than going through some of the latest technologies that we do have at the moment. So I'll say at the moment it's a split of 70% of face-to-face transactions and then 30% call center and online transfers.
Okay, so still heavy dependency on the cash-to-cash model.
That's right.
Very much so. And it's interesting when you hear all this about sending money, sending cash, sending into a bank account. Then, Jeremy, you come along and you introduce a whole different concept. Now, instead of sending money, I can send effectively goods, because what you're doing is you're paying for the distribution of goods, the reason why people send money in the first place, or a portion thereof, across some key African countries. Now, is that a sustainable model, and do you really believe that people ultimately will not want to send cash and will just want to pay for product?
Yeah, there are different things. Actually, the remittances space where you would send money to support basic needs of your family, which is what we're talking about, to pay for medicine, health, and education, is really what we today answer. So people, like we've seen, I'm speaking in the African context, are sending about 60% of what they send is to finance these buckets of expenses, and that's what we're today addressing. Of course, as the markets evolve, these needs and the money that is being sent will be used to finance other types of expenses. For example, unproductive assets like land and buildings, or productive assets, financing companies back home. And I think that one of our challenges, and that's what we're addressing today, is really addressing the bulk of the demand, so 60% of financing basic current daily needs, and we'll be moving along, and the idea is really to accompany each time the clients into financing the very specific needs and sophisticated needs that they have.
Okay. It's interesting because there are four somewhat different ways of sending and receiving money, and I look at you, Ludwig, and wonder, with those differences, be it the brand, be it the channel, be it the device, how do you connect them? How do you make it seamless in order for a consumer to send money one way and retrieve it depending on the choice that they want throughout any of the companies that are out there? What is your thinking around that?
Well, so obviously my bias is towards mobile phone as being the crux of all of this, that the dynamics that are shifting this portion of the financial services market as well as many others is the fact that mobile phones have gone from almost no presence to effectively 80-90% presence worldwide, and we're talking about in every single corner of the world. That changes the nature of what's possible, where you all of a sudden have a personal interaction with an individual, not even the home computer that we may have experienced, in 2 decades or a decade ago. Now it's actually the individual's phone. And so once service providers are able to make that connection directly to an individual's phone, not only are you able to change the way you are communicating and sending, you're increasing the emotional potential being able to send a good or a service that has a specific meaning as opposed to a cash, which may also be very well required, but it changes entirely the way in which people perceive it. That shift of mobile phone penetration is then also compounded by a shift in just economic potential. So the World Bank or a number of different organizations believe that by 2030 there will be 3 billion new middle class in the growth markets as we define them today. And middle class as defined by European standards, not by any other standard. That again is a huge shift in the way in which people consume and the way in which people have the potential to use funds and therefore also store and move funds around. And so we think that the mobile phone is a big part of all of that happening.
And do you feel that obviously from a mobile phone and usability standpoint, you have a much broader customer base than simply the remittance customer or that niche migrant out of the 220 million? In terms of reach, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that wealth comes a movement towards a secure storage of funds that we take for granted, where increasingly people in the growth markets are having an opportunity to put funds instead of under a mattress or in a tin, to be able to put that into either a traditional bank account or very often what we would think of as prepaid or stored value accounts. And that again is altering then the location where remittances can end up. But it also means for all other financial services that there's an entirely new way in which people can pay. So whether it's for insurance policies, whether it's for bills, whether it's for domestic remittances, all of these type of services become now available in a way that they never have been before.
Okay. It's interesting because if you think about some of the dominant players in the remittance space, names like Western Union and MoneyGram, well, they mean different things to different people. Western Union, to those of us who are, well, I shouldn't say us, maybe I'm not in that group quite yet, but those who are 50 and older means maybe telegrams. The 30 to 50 range, it might mean money transfer, and the 20 or the Generation Y, the millennials, it means nothing. They don't know what Western Union is. So names like Visa, PayPal, Zoom, Azimo, those are the guys, Pinion, that are sort of coming to the forefront, especially in the Generation Y. What does Seagate stand? Where is your brand, and what is the significance of it in this new emerging generation, Generation Y, and the next generation after that?
Sure. You know, I think you touched on it. Number one, you have to segment your audience. You know, depending on the corridor, their experience with technology and other things, that will drive really how a consumer behaves towards different channels that are available to them. You know, some corridors, direct deposit is almost a requirement anymore because of the evolution of the business. You're seeing more and more staging of transactions on the front end where you make it more convenient for the customer, but ultimately you give them options to pay on the front end with a credit card, a debit card, in person with cash. It's giving the customer the choice and understanding by segment what's the right choice. You know, we're in a unique position in that we have a tremendous database on consumers. We know their behavior, their activity, how often they send money, where they send it to, who they send it to. Our challenge right now, or our big opportunity, is how do we leverage that data to create unique segments and offerings, whether it's a mobile solution, you know, a banking ping-it type solution to our customers. That's where I see, you know, Seagate's future is having traditional brand, but also having the right strategic alliances and partners to offer the full range of services, because quite honestly, we can't be everything to everyone. Okay. We have to specialize in what we do, but we have to partner with the right strategic partners to give our customers the choice.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. Now, Ian, when we talk about, again, some of the traditional players such as Western Union and MoneyGram, even if we add in Seagate, RIA, and a variety of others, you're close to about 1 million locations around the world in 200 countries and territories. That's a lot of distribution. other than the question of how many locations do you need, what's your thinking around customer reach with Pinion?
I think it's two things, really, and we touched on this when we talked before. I think on the one hand, at the end of the day, transfer bank to bank, you can address a significant portion of the population on the planet, and that's growing. And as you say, whether it's actual bank account, whether it's prepaid card, all of these pieces, we can address them. And there's a regulatory pressure to do that. You know, we all know that cash is used for good things, and we know that cash is used for bad things as well. So there's always going to be that push. On the other hand, and this is where you can talk a bit more about revolution as well, the agent model has its purpose because people are interested in physically getting cash. Now, if you look at the banks around the world, we have nearly 1 million ATMs. So we have the largest 24/7 cash distribution network on the planet, except we don't use it other than with a physical card. Now, we, with our ABSA subsidiary, have shown how you can do cash send. You don't need the card. Royal Bank of Scotland have done the same thing in the UK. A number of people have done it. The interesting question I'd pose is, could you do that at a global level? And actually, technically, it doesn't take much to do. So it's one of the things I'd be fascinated in. You asked the question about interoperability. If you could do that, actually you open up that massive cash distribution network and you take out a massive cost, which is that physical agent. And you give it traceability as well, which is what the regulator is demanding. So I think there's massive opportunities here for us to leverage the assets we have in a way that traditionally we haven't done.
Okay. Well, I think very enlightening indeed. And Jeremy, when you look at that, how do you see that playing into your customer segment?
Yeah, in terms of the distribution and the network for us as well is very important. But on the contrary to what has been said, our merchants, our acceptants are not banks, and they don't distribute cash. So the regulations are very much different. This is an asset, and it's a strength and a weakness at the same time. But what it enables us is to have a very wide distribution and a wide reach of payout, which, if I may call them like this, of merchants across countries in Africa. So that's important for our clients to know that they can go in many different parts of the cities or of their countries to withdraw the goods.
The other thing I think is fascinating about sort of the agent presence and the potential for existing parties like yourself, Western Union, et cetera, as well as banks, is that there always will need to be a physical interaction with the end customer as for KYC, for know your customer purposes, for identification purposes and opening accounts, at least until there are the same kind of systems we come to take for granted in the UK and other European and North American markets, where you can actually do all the verifications online with a number of different factors. But until that happens, in all of these other markets, those agent networks are invaluable, because you must be able to actually see and touch and interact with the individual and see their identity to be able to create an account. And that is an enormous asset that is very hard to replicate in the short term.
Okay. I do have two very burning, maybe provocative questions to ask. And Ian, I don't know if you're ready for this. Theodore, for you to think about, I'd like to know the role of Unistream Bank in relation to Unistream, the money transfer. So while you think about that for a moment, I'm going to go to Ian. Ian, recently it's been announced that Barclays has pulled the plug on most of the independent agents that are money transfer service providers. You may or may not be aware of this, but I would welcome your thoughts. I'm sure Jay would too. But in terms of out there today, those agents that we talked about, not just in the UK, but really in most of the Sun markets that they operate, and this started in the US almost 5 years ago, where they were literally and indiscriminately shutting down all of the independent agents because of compliance risks or reputational risks or whatever. How do you see that affecting the overall business? And is that a move to give Pinion an advantage in the marketplace?
So why does he get the chance to have to think about the question before I have to answer that one? To be brutally honest, I don't know. At this point, I can humbly claim simply to be the poor IT spanner worker, so I couldn't possibly comment. I would strongly suggest, however, that the two are not interlinked. You know, the simple reality here is regulation works in mysterious ways and pushes reactions to things that aren't linked in that way. I'm sure Deanna would sort of back me up on this. I don't think we will be quite that capable of being that devious, frankly.
You're just so good, it just happens naturally. Theodore, tell us about Unistream Bank and you know, what role it plays in facilitating or supporting Unistream money transfer.
Well, Unistream money transfers is just one product of Unistream Commercial Bank. So Unistream Commercial Bank will work as a traditional banking, a high street bank in Russia. But they have a big network of other banks that work as corresponding payout outlets. This is what makes it have one of the biggest networks in the former Soviet states and Eastern Europe. It is very supportive of Unistream UK, but unfortunately, it is very challenging if you happen to fall within a certain bracket of corridors that are termed or seen as high-risk corridors. Unfortunately, some of these corridors that we do have transfers to aren't the cup of tea of Barclays Bank. Together with other banks in the UK. So it is very challenging to us having to work with some of the big banks in the UK. Okay. But nonetheless, Unistream Commercial Bank still remains committed to Unistream money transfers, and they are still looking out for latest technologies. They're going investing much into that. In fact, in Moscow, we have local terminals that they call the kiosk. They work as just like the cash machines operate over here. So these are set out in various vantage points where customers can just go walk to these terminals and then make transfers by themselves. I mean, just like doing an online transfer. Right. So Unistream Commercial Bank, I would say, even though it's still actively involved in the traditional face-to-face sort of cash-to-cash transactions, they are really investing into technology, and some of these terminals will soon be seen in the UK. Great.
Look forward to that. Any other last-minute comments, gentlemen? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and contribution, and thank you.